I'm David Niffen, one of the Casa Llanta visionaries down here, looking to build a sustainable home on some of Tim Kelly's land. Casa Llanta is just simply an Earthship. An Earthship is an idea that came about in the 1970s with architect Michael Reynolds. Mike came out of architecture school, was a licensed architect, and decided that he was going to start building a little bit differently. So he started building with cans, eventually tires, basically using the world's trash to construct. So the idea started in Taos, New Mexico with the first 3 Earthships that were built, and has evolved to something that's now worldwide. So this is the first Earthship in Nicaragua. But the idea behind the Earthship is that not only are you using materials that have been thrown away, using society's byproducts, but you're also completely sustainable in the sense that the building behind me catches its own water from the 120 inches of rain we get a year here, stores it in cisterns, and we use that throughout the dry season to take a shower, to drink. We filter it through a series of 3 different filters, and then when we're done using that water for bathing or washing dishes, we send it into a planter cell, which we're working on today, which filters the water. So we send it into a big rubber-lined planter and let that water get cleaned up with the plants that we plant in there, and then we send it out, we pump it back, reuse that water again in the toilet, and then pump it out into a more traditional septic tank or a black water system. So the water alone, we're able to conserve over 2/3 of what a normal house would use just because of the number of times that we're using it. This building will have solar panels on it so that we're completely independent from the grid. So any fluctuations in power that might happen, especially in a country like Nicaragua where it's not super consistent all the time, we're able to avoid those problems by creating our own power and storing it in batteries. We use both DC and AC power in this building. The heating and cooling of the building is brought to you by the properties of thermal mass, which is just the idea of using these tires, aside from being a readily available byproduct of society, is that they're basically steel-belted rubber bricks. So what we take is a big tire, we fill it full of dirt, pound it with a sledgehammer, fill it with more dirt, pound it again, until it's basically a rubber-lined or a steel-belted rubber brick that's about 200 to 300 pounds, depending on the size of the tire. Those function kind of like Adobe is the most common thing people will be familiar with, but dense items will transfer the hot or cold, will transfer whatever you put into them. So in this case, we back bury the building so that we're in contact with the cool earth all the time, and it transfers that coolness into the room. So we're able to cool our building without using any air conditioning or conventional electricity. So specific to this project in El Carrizal, Nicaragua, which is just south of San Juan del Sur, Nicaragua, the idea is twofold. The idea is to educate, and the idea is to demonstrate. So we've got 2 things working here. First, we want to educate to the local people, local investors, local builders, anyone who's interested in developing in Nicaragua, because as we know, development will happen regardless of our involvement or not. We'd like to show them a way of doing it. Now, when this project's all said and done, if the Earthship is too much and someone doesn't like the idea of the tires, or doesn't like the idea of treating their own water, or doesn't like the idea of the water catchment, that's okay. But I'm hoping that what happens is when people see these different components in play, they adopt some of them into their own structures. So that's the first, is to to really kind of educate how that's possible, and then in conjunction with demonstrating what we're doing. The other, which is a little bit more formal, is the idea of the actual science of the systems, and using this potentially as a demonstration home which can be used for field trips, school projects, where people can come and talk about, or actually not just talk about, but experience biology, experience things like oxygenation and respiration taking place, which is cleaning the water that you've just used to wash your dishes with. So if we can do those two things at once, then this becomes a very successful project. Now, another thing we did with that is, in this particular community, there's about 200 people, and we've decided to employ, whenever possible, only people that live within the 200 meters surrounding this. So all of the workers to date, with the exception of those that have come down from Earthship Biotexture in Taos, New Mexico to actually educate these workers, have been workers from the community. Now obviously we subcontract out for electricians and plumbers, but the idea is that when you build within a community, you build with the community, and hopefully making it a safer place for not just your building, but for anyone who would be here in the future.